We're jumping out of here.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of the WazzyCircus Radio, the show where I sit down with the smartest people that I've ever met. I don't know if that's saying too much, man. Shout out to my Patreon patriots, Jeff Gowie, Adrian Lewis, the new people on there, everybody that supports us. I appreciate it. Shut up. Man, I keep going. Corey Thornhill, Katie Queen. I'm looking at all y'all. Yo, I got them suits. I don't know if y'all know. They're $350 new. They're affordable. They're comfortable. They look pretty badass, man. You got to hit me up personally to get them. I kind of need to come measure you or something because...
Getting any booties in?
No booties. No booties, man.
just like the game.
Big booty. My guest today is my buddy Jimmy, man. You hear us talk about Jimmy all the time. Jimmy seems to fly away on skydives. Just fly off in the trees and shit.
Well, that's after the canopy's open.
Jimmy, man, okay. How do we start? So Jimmy's your friend that loves to skydive when you go on vacation. Right? If we're going somewhere cool and exotic, Jimmy's in. He just hasn't jumped in a year since the last time we went somewhere, so he needs to get current. So he hits Jeff up, makes a couple jumps, and then we go to some exotic place. That was Cali. Before that was Costa Rica. Your landings, dude. Your pattern. You're like one of the smartest people I know. What are you thinking? I want people to learn. You say you watch Friday Freakouts. I want you. So we're on these trips. We have AFF instructors with us. And we're all watching Jimmy. Everybody's concerned about
And
Jimmy.
I could hear them screaming the whole time. Like, I don't know what to do now. They're all yelling. I'm just going to ignore them. The ground's coming anyways.
Dude, we'll have a great jump, and everybody gathers. Where's Jimmy? Where is Jimmy? And there you go. There's Jimmy.
And last time, everybody thought I was the one with the cutaway.
Oh, thank God you didn't have to cut away.
Because I was wondering, why is everyone so upset? And yeah, it was a bad crosswind landing, but I mean, it wasn't that bad.
All crosswind landings are bad. That was Cali.
Yeah.
We were at fucking Silicon Valley, man. Why did you do that? Everybody was going the right way. It was clear everybody was coming back, and you just cut straight across. What were you thinking when that happened? No turns, right?
When I was coming in, I was expecting to come in faster. And so as I got over the DZ, I was already at like 600 feet.
Gotcha.
So I was like, well, I don't want to run into those people because I know my steering's terrible. So I'll just keep going back, but I don't want to go into that field in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I just looked for trying to get down to that point, and I was hoping to make like just a sharp turn. I was making the turn around. I was like, oh, I'm at like 150. I was like, oh, I got to flatten out and just go straight in at this point.
Okay,
There's no way I'm finishing this turn.
So it wasn't dangerous because you were behind everybody. You just never finished a turn. You just kept on base.
I was like, no. I should have, with Jeff and I talked, and I should have done a quarter break turn instead of putting in more input, and that would have finished the turn.
Did you end up long on that jump? Why didn't you get back?
No, I was fine. I was higher than you when you came through because you came like right in front of me, just screaming along, and so like, oh well, everything's good. I'm in the right place, and plus the higher up above 1,000, it was much windier because when I would turn in, I was going fine, and then when I came in when I came in at 1,000, it was like, okay, I'm not going anywhere.
Gotcha.
And then I start getting slowly drifting over that fenced-in area. Like, nope, I need to keep going this way. Like, oh man, I'm either doing a downwind landing or I don't know where, but I just want to make it back to stay on that DZ side.
On the DZ side of the world. How many stand-up landings you got? Is 35 now?
Stand-up landings, probably maybe 10.
It's 35 jumps now?
Yeah.
Over how many years?
It was 2016, maybe 15, something was the first one. I don't know. Maybe even 14. I don't know. It's been a while.
It's been a while. I've watched you. It's like 2 jumps a year.
But it's always, oh no, WazzyCircus coming up. I gotta go and get current. And it's cold out. Why did I wait?
And how many years have you done WazzyCircus? About the same amount, huh? 7 years?
Yeah, as soon as you met, we were talking about, well, after I broke my ankle, you're like, hey, we should go ahead and work on your canopy over at the dunes where you can't kill yourself.
Which you still tried to kill yourself at the dunes. Oh, that was fun. I remember that trip. Do you remember that trip? Jimmy would, hey, yo, Jimmy. We'd get Jimmy kited up, and everybody would even push him down the hill, and he'd fly straight up, arms straight up, right into the ground. We're like, fucking flare! You didn't even flinch, dude. You just took it. Fucking feet, knees, face. Boom! Did you get up? Fucking wrap that motherfucker up and hike back up the hill.
There wasn't enough wind.
To flare.
No, to go back up the hill. That was so
hike.
painful.
Oh my God. I remember one year we had to send a drone after you because we couldn't fucking
That
find
was
you.
2 years.
Last year, you could never fucking find Jimmy. This year, you were fighting that paraglider. Man, that was fun. What happened with the paraglider? Because I got off. I took a couple steps and I was out of there.
Oh, every time I would get up and I was working my way up, it would just, the wind would stop just
Man,
enough.
I had to have somebody help me, like hold me and push me up the hill, and then I was able to take off.
Yeah.
That was fun.
The problem with people helping as long as, like, if you have it over your head, that's fine. But if they're
Right.
trying to, like, help get it up, unless they really know how a paraglider works, it's not that helpful.
They're in the way. They're tripping and falling
Because
over it.
you want that center to inflate first so it goes straight up. Otherwise, it's going one way or other.
everywhere,
And unlike these canopies, where even if, like, one side comes up, it's going straight over your head, this inflates, you're going whatever direction it wants to go.
And it'll spin like a motherfucker on you.
At which point you're sitting there just cussing it out because you're like, I got to untangle all this just to
Yeah.
get started to do it again.
It's hard. Paragliding's hard, you guys.
But it's fun.
It's fun, but coming from the skydiving world, there's like triple the amount of risers and shit. It's so ridiculous. You look up, it's like, oh, fuck.
But it
Each
teaches
line
you-
set has a set of risers, and it's like just a lot. At first, it's a lot of lines, man. You know, and there's pulleys and magnets and shit. You're like, what? And trim.
But it teaches you a lot better about aerodynamics and how everything works, especially because under the canopy, skydive canopy, you're just going to the ground. That's the only thing it does is it goes
Right,
to the ground
right.
quickly. Where here, you learn, hey, how to turn, what your inputs are going to do to it. Just let go and let it fly, that you can do that.
Yeah.
Instead of, I have to put in input all the time. It's like, no, stop doing that.
Just leave it alone. Trims for faster or slower flight, more acrobatic, or just cruising. It's a really cool vehicle, isn't it? The paraglider is amazing. It's more intricate than the skydiving parachute.
Well, I mean,
In certain ways. Well, no, you get up into those fucking sub 100s. There's certain things in those turns and like coming down those swoops and those flares that those little canopies got dialed in too. I'm excited to jump some fluid. If we get a drop zone in El Paso, I'm excited to jump some fluid wing shit. If not, I'll just be at the tunnel. How much tunnel time you got? You got
Too much.
20, 30, 40, 50 hours in tunnel time?
I got more than a Tesla worth.
That's fucked up, Jimmy. Yeah, but it's over like 7 years. Yeah, but yeah, it's
Probably about that.
easy to blow that loot.
Especially when I had fewer, when everything was cheaper too. Like when it was $10 or $10
Tuesdays?
minutes.
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah, sure, why not? I'll put $300 because it's that's 1/3 the price. And I get
Yeah.
all this extra time.
Yeah, not anymore.
Oh, I know. Now it's like, can I find someone who is willing to go in? Like you're gonna split.
And when did you start doing flight nights? That was in the beginning too, wasn't it?
It was. I started coming in after I broke my ankle and just had nothing else to do and was watching the guys there. I was like, man, nope, I can't do that. They're all so good. Yeah, right. But from my perspective, they looked good.
Oh, right. Oh, the flight nights?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I know, right? To the outside world, you're like, they're killing it.
And then
As the
but you
instructor,
don't
you're
know
like,
what you're...
Oh, God.
They're all
They're
going to
all
kill
gonna
each
die.
other.
Everyone's going to die? They're all going to die? There's 4 of them. No one lives? Yeah, no one lives. Run it again.
and until you know what you're looking for, you just don't know. And plus, like, you're trying to watch a full formation. You're watching everybody instead of going, hey, you just watch one person, then move
what
over
they're
and watch the
doing, right.
next and watch the next. Because,
You got to learn what they're doing, but that takes time.
but then once you learn, like, oh, hey, all you have to do is learn your position in the formation at a minimum, and you're going to be fine for the team.
You're golden for the team. Right. You just play your position. Let's go to the ankle story.
Oh, that was just stupid. I understand now what happened. Back then, I figured, oh, it's wind or something. No, I was just reaching for the ground.
Yeah, I was reaching. So where are you at? How many jumps?
That was Spaceland, Houston.
Okay, we're
that
sharing.
that was number 9.
Number 9.
The day was going perfectly too, and that was. I actually had spent so the first 2 jumps I did was tandem over there, and then it was weather, and that was when I met you. It was the next day because there was weather, and what's his name? One of the instructors there. God, I can't remember right offhand. He's still there. But he sent me over to go to you because, well, he was my tandem instructor, and he knew more than I did of how bad I was.
On your tandem?
Yes.
Oh God.
That's why he was like, "You should go see Waz over there. Just tell him you're gonna be a skydiver." Yeah, don't tell Waz you're gonna be a skydiver.
Oh jeez.
He's gonna destroy you in the tunnel.
Let's go back. Dude knew you were that bad then. Yeah, he could tell off a tandem.
He wasn't. He was being polite.
Yeah, because it was rough. But I mean, you know how to fly now. It's no joke now.
It took me an hour in the tunnel just to get basic belly
forward back turns, man.
Just not to crush into the wall.
And you know why? I know why it took you so long. You're so smart. You cheat a lot. You find a cheat and you try to use it instead of learning the complete hard way to do it.
Well, back then, I fought the wind. I the whole time for like an hour. I finally burned myself out. I'm so tired
that I just let go.
I was like, wait, this is working. I should do this.
Well, I still see you do the elbow cut to cheat to come down instead of arching. I had to tell you to arch like 4 times. You'd arch and you'd be like, oh, this sucks. And you bring your elbows and try to fly that. And that's tough, man.
Well, part of bringing it in, though, it forces me to fly 2 people, too.
Arch.
Oh, I need to do both.
I see you go, okay, and you arch, and we get like 2 points, and you go, fuck that. You bring your elbows in. I'm like, fucking Jimmy.
It's easier to go back to what I've been doing.
Oh, that's fun. So, I mean, what were you doing before you made that tandem? Like, what possessed you to go skydive? How old were you?
Apparently, whatever 7 years ago was.
Okay, so this is that recently, yeah.
I'm 38, I guess.
Okay.
Something like that.
Right on.
But just I had got out of the Air Force and now had a new job. It was basically 2 years later. Got a degree in computer science, so I went over and got a programming job at Accenture, like one of the world's largest consulting companies. I was like, I don't want to work for the government. Of course, first all the contracts are for the government. So I was like, all right, I give up. You win.
You're like, I escaped. Can I work for you again, please?
Well, no, I don't want to work. I'd rather be a contractor. But the first project that I was put on over there, we did literally nothing. You would show up, and the bosses would just go like, if they showed up at all, would say hi, and then they vanish. And it's like, well, what's going on? And so the end of the day comes, and you just leave, and then
that's what you did out of the Air Force for 2 years?
No, no. Immediately out of the Air Force, first thing I did was go to Japan, so that was fun. And then after that,
you just went out there for fun?
Yeah.
Right on. Have you visited there before?
Twice before, I think. Yeah.
Okay. And what city?
Well, that trip I went to Fukuoka to a language school, and so that was a lot of fun. We also did. It's a cultural language school, so it's not like a hardcore whatever.
Right.
You go do trips and other things.
You paid for that yourself?
Yeah.
How much was that?
It wasn't that expensive. Not back then.
Right.
Today, it's impossible.
And for years, how long did you go for?
No, it was only a month.
Oh, it was a month, but you still got to live in Japan.
Yeah, it was fun. And it was nice because I went to Fukuoka, which is on the southern big main chain of islands. And so that place is more Japanese than so I had been to Tokyo for my previous trips, and Tokyo is a major metropolitan city.
Right.
So are the people there Japanese, but there's a lot of English spoken. Every sign, if you speak English, you'll have no problem in Tokyo because it's just another English city, basically.
Right.
And it has Japanese characteristics, but it's nothing like when you go out to the towns or anything where they don't speak any English or they barely speak any English, and they have the Japanese customs and approaches and thought patterns and stuff. And that's also when you learn, hey, they're all very cliquish, and that's by design. They're they're group oriented. So if you're not in the group, you're out of the group, and they don't let you in the group without a lot of effort. And so if you go to the language school, they know all the people, and they know, hey, they're coming from the language school, and they're gonna leave. So we're really fine with it.
Like, be nice to them because they're leaving. Oh, that's funny.
It's like if you're a tourist, they're like, oh, okay, we'll be nice to you. But if you live there for a while, they'll put on the nice face because they're polite. They want to be polite, but at the same time, they don't respect you because you're not Japanese. I mean, but that's general in most countries. If you're not a local, you don't get respect because you're not a local.
Right.
But
how much Japanese did you pick up?
Enough for conversation. Basic conversation.
They call you gaijin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
right?
I mean that's literally the word for foreigner.
So they're just gaijin.
I mean, it's really Gai Kokujin, but it's shortened.
Yeah, Gai Kokujin. Yeah.
But because it's foreign person, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Have you read James Clavell?
No. Don't even know the name.
That's such a good author. All right, yeah, cool, man. That's cool.
Actually, one of the problems is I don't read enough anymore. I spend almost all my time studying and researching, and so I don't do much actual book reading like I should be doing. Occasionally, I might get like a philosophy book or something to read, but most of the time, it's just I've got to keep up with tech. I got to keep up with my job and keep improving on that. And there's when people say, "Oh, hey, the younger generation coming in is really good at tech." No, they're not.
What do you mean?
Because one of the interesting things about software engineering, everything new is old. Right now, there's the big containerization, which is called Docker, is the primary one that's common. It's a 1970s technology. But that is the new hotness that is what has powered the cloud. And
really? Okay.
Then there's container orchestration, which is still the same thing as it used to be back then. And it's everything new is the old stuff. It's just a new shiny polish that makes it
why isn't
easier
there a new platform?
Like what?
I don't know. Why did they stop in 1970?
It's not that. It's just they came up with the technology then, and then. But one of the problems is a lot of the computers, like microprocessing computers, didn't have the power to handle it. Massive servers did, but if you're dealing with your local 8 megahertz, if you're lucky with that, computer, 16-bit bus, there's one, no reason for it. You didn't need it, and number two, it just didn't have the power or the memory or anything else for it. That's why you could only run one program on those old computers. Well, but it did it well.
So what about now? What do you guys like? So let's catch people up a little bit. Work at NASA. That's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
He always does that. Fuck that, man. That's fucking amazing.
That was one of my goals. That's part of why when I went to go start my software development portion of the career, I decided I should start at the bottom because I have a long work history, and as well as management history and
how many years in the Air Force?
10 years. Well, 11, I guess. Yeah, 11.
Right on.
And then before that, I had been working since 18 at least, and so I had another, 8 years? So I got in the Air Force as an older person too. So
okay.
It was like when I was a brand new lieutenant. The other brand new lieutenants were 4 and 5 years younger, and other things like that.
So what possessed you to go to the Air Force?
Well, I had wanted to do it anyways before I started college. Mm-hmm. Terrible college student, by the way. But
you were? Really?
I barely graduated.
What were you doing? Playing games?
I
shit?
failed out of an entire semester, nothing but F's straight across the board.
What were you fucking doing?
Working. I liked that way more than college. College is boring.
What were you doing for work?
Stupid stuff. Delivery and working in warehouses. And
you almost blew your fucking career in warehouses, dude.
You know what? God has his plan
way,
for you.
Right? He has his way.
Because had I not done that, I wouldn't have been delayed until the point that I did apply for the Air Force and ended up... Because when I first applied for the Air Force, I had no interest in flying or anything like that. It was like, oh, that's kind of complicated and don't really want to be involved with that.
Right.
Because I like systems and system design and working with systems. But by the time that I got to the point where I was applying for it, they're like, well, one, you have 2010 vision, so they're like, you should be a pilot, and I'm like, no, but I'll go with the navigator. Like, I don't really know what the navigator does.
They offered you pilot. They offered you Top Gun.
Top Gun, that's Navy. But
I'm just kidding, but but I mean, still, you had a chance.
In the Air Force, it's called weapons school. But
yeah, I know. Miramar, the best of the best. That movie was fucking amazing. Did you see it? Did you see it?
The new one?
Yes.
Not yet.
Fucking amazing. Spoiler alert, it's fucking amazing. That's all I'm going to say.
I've heard from plenty of places.
It's so good. Oh, it's so good.
It's an entertaining movie.
Fuck off. You probably take it apart. Yeah, a lot of it's probably bullshit.
No, I heard it's pretty decent.
Okay.
It's obviously going to have movie magic as much as, but...
Yeah. There's a little old Iron Eagle in there.
Iron Eagle.
Yeah.
Now, that was a different movie.
I know. And I don't know why they did it, but they did. They did. It was really cool. There's a little, like, ode to it in there. Like, if you see it, you're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the downside of... so my position in the Air Force was a electronic warfare officer, and I was specifically on B-52, which meant I did defense, because there are also what are recce, basically spies. Mm-hmm. They're on other planes where they just listen and they collect information and develop whatever we need to pass the intel around that's needed for going to war, for defending things and stuff like that.
So these are like snoops in the sky. These are like offices.
The nice thing about those guys, though, they're in charge of their plane, where on my plane, I'm in charge of my seat. And that's it. I can eject if I want.
You can eject out of those things in your seat?
In a B-52, yeah.
Your seat ejects?
There's 6 ejection seats. 2 for the pilots, 2 in the back. 1 is the gunner, but we don't have a gunner anymore. 1 is the electronic warfare officer. Then downstairs are the 2 navigators, and they can eject down.
Wow. Does it automatic eject if something goes wrong?
It is all manual.
It is all manual.
Yeah,
because if you're unconscious, you're not getting the fuck out of there.
Unless someone pulls for you. But that's actually a conversation that happens from time to time. Hey, what are we going to do in various situations? They have a program called CRM, Crew Resource Management, where they go through, hey, here's these different situations, talk through whatever with your particular crew. Because generally you get assigned to a crew that you typically fly with when you're in the operations part of the Air Force, and where once you continue, if you go to like the operations squadron, which is not the operations part, they're the support squadron, so they support operations, and then you start getting assigned as an instructor to various squadrons over there, and you generally start focusing more on the instruction side as well as supporting combat operations, doing mission planning, whatever's needed. Too many reports.
And you just fly around all the fucking time with an ejection seat. You know what? The reason they didn't do it, because that shit might go off on accident during a mission. Or could you accidentally pop that shit and just be out of the plane?
No, you arm your seat as soon as in your checklist, you arm the seat prior to takeoff. So
it's ready at any moment then?
Yeah. By arming the seat. For my seat, I had these pins. You just take the pins out. It's now ready because all you do is you rotate the handles.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 handles. You only have to rotate one of them, so that way, like if there's if AAA comes in, takes out this half of your body, you can still eject with the other side or whatever.
It just falls straight down?
No, you go up.
You shoot out the top.
Yeah.
No helmet on. You have a helmet on?
Yes, you always have a helmet on. You can't hear anybody without it. It has the speakers and it has your mask and everything. It's used to hold
your oxygen. So the plane's not pressurized?
No, it's pressurized.
But you still have oxygen?
Yeah, you have your oxygen hose because it's pressurized to a lower pressure. And it has a whole bunch of holes. When you walk around the plane in flight, you can, like when you go downstairs, you can see underneath the plane because you're walking over to go to the bathroom and you're looking down. It's like, if you're over the water, there's the ocean.
Oh, that's fucking crazy.
The only time I get to see out of the plane. My seat faces backwards. It's pretty dark back there, so no windows.
How fucking uncomfortable is that?
That's not bad.
How many hours?
I don't remember. Maybe 1,600.
Oh, I mean, a day. You fly for 8 hours a day, 3 hours.
When I joined, our typical training missions were 8 to 10 hours, and eventually it was cut down to about 4 hours.
Do you even realize you're flying after a while, or are you just working?
I mean, it's always work, but but the 8 to 10 hours is on purpose, is because there's some kind of physiological change that happens once you get used to that. You can basically continue endlessly from that point on. You get used to it, but
Really? That's fucking nuts.
yeah, well, it's just like when I was working in the Air Force, it wasn't unusual to do 12-hour days, 6 days a week, sometimes seven, or longer. And there were, like, when I was deployed to Guam when we were doing mission support, we were working 18 to 20 hours a day. And it was just, we went in, we mission planned, we debriefed, we briefed the base commander, we briefed the people who were before they go flying, they come back, and in that time we're preparing all the mission planning and everything else, and working with all the other agencies to coordinate all this stuff, so that way all the people who are going to go fly have to do is they just walk in, they get their paperwork, they go to the plane, they take off, go do their little sortie, come back, and I don't have any problem with that.
Right on. So
I mean, I was the person who came in and did the same thing. You pick up the paperwork, go fly, do that, and we would fly every once in a while for currency. So.
Right. Okay, so did you get your pilot's license while you're there?
No, I did half of that through what they called NIFTY. It was Navigator Initial Flight Training, and that was so. But the real purpose was to occupy your time before your class started.
Oh, really?
And so I went to San Antonio because the Randolph is where the Navigator training happens, and we went to the San Antonio airport, flew Cessnas for 20-something hours, got signed off, did the FAA test, had to pass that, and then went to do Navigator training.
And you don't want to continue? Oh, you do. You jump.
I got somehow last in my class, but I was able to choose.
Somehow. He gave a raw with it, too. I got last in my class.
Because at that time I wanted to be a navigator. I didn't know anything about electronic warfare. I was like, well, I don't know anything about it, so I don't want to do it. Right. Ended up in electronic warfare. After that point, it was like everybody wanted to do that. It was like, wait, what? The people who were first of the class wanted it. Is the last of the class was the one who ended up in there with my class. And so ended up over there. And at the time, I still wasn't interested in doing the combat thing or whatever. Wasn't really confident that I had the skills to handle that, and that was entertaining. That we had one guy who was gung-ho, yeah, I'm going whatever combat, like sure, whatever, I don't mind, you do whatever you want.
Right.
It's like I want to go on the recce side. Didn't go to the recce, obviously. And when I was doing the simulators with the combat stuff, it was like, oh, so this is what you're doing. It's like, it's actually really interesting. It really challenges your mind on how you have to manage the aircraft, you have to manage the crew on the aircraft, the weapons on the aircraft. You have to know where all the threats are, and whenever pop-up threats, figure out where they are, come up with a plan while you're flying of how to avoid it. You know, kind of like coming up with a plan to land and not flare.
Yeah, and not flare. Does it feel video game-ish sometimes? Like fucking like World of Warcraft style? Like there's so much shit going on?
No. It's
what about with these battlefield? I can't even imagine what the real shit is.
Not really.
Did you see any real action? Were you guys involved in real action?
Yeah,
like a lot.
I mean, no. We did our combat deployment where we flew over Afghanistan. Rarely, I mean, we did stuff, but rarely was any of it particularly dangerous. I mean, on occasion there were possible problems, but wasn't that big of a deal.
Do you guys have escorts, or are you just up there alone? Because you're way up there, aren't
you? Over Afghanistan, well, we can't talk about that part, but over Afghanistan, it's permissible airspace. The Taliban don't have an air force. They don't really have much on the ground. They have just the man-portable systems called man-pads. So that's just the missile they have on the shoulder and shoulder launch. And so that's the main threat that we have, or small arms fire if we're low enough that they're shooting at that they can maybe reach us. But
How high can a bullet go? It's only like a mile, right?
Yeah, and so if you're under a mile, then they
That's
can hit you.
5,000 feet. Yeah, they can hit you at $4,000.
So, because like sometimes we would do low passes over areas to disperse riding crowds and things like that. And
Really?
yeah,
They fly jets over to scare the shit out of people?
yeah. Like
bet
one
you that
night,
shit works, don't it?
there was they had just geniuses had fired all the police officers, but they didn't take their weapons yet. So they all just started rioting because they still had their weapons. And so we did a couple passes over there, and every time we'd do a pass, they would break up, and it would took the pressure off of the remaining police, because who were being attacked by the former police.
Oh my God! What a fucking shit show that place sounds like.
It's different because they were after World War II. They started getting understanding the technologies and the different more modern forms of systems that we use, because I won't call it better, or it's just different, because like our policing, our centralized policing, whatever, is significantly different than what in the past, where you would have a couple people within a village or whatever who handle your security purposes, and anytime that you need more, well, all the men of the village get together, and now you have your militia, and militia fights off whoever's invading your village or your particular area. Similar to the way our Second Amendment's written, is you form a militia, and that's kind of the point of being able to form a militia, is in case you have a reason
under
for
attack.
it.
So, but for them, they try the centralized policing thing when they're used to having the community policing, and that's why it fucking fell apart, because they didn't give a fuck.
No, I mean, for a while things were going actually fairly well. They were developing. Basically, everyone wanted to be America after World War II, because look, America just dominated the entire world during a conflict, and so that's rather impressive. And well, our culture is definitely it doesn't transfer well to other places.
Right.
The culture of the United States really is set for a particular type of people, a particular type of belief system, and a particular way of life. And established cultures in other places, if you're trying to replace them, they're obviously going to push back against that. And so that's part of why we failed badly in Afghanistan and Iraq and all these other places that we tried to impose a culture that is not theirs. It's better to build yours and let it spread out rather than try to go somewhere else and then create it. Unless you're going to go in and genocide everyone, then the land's yours, but that's not the best approach to doing things.
So, Ukraine and Russia.
That's just, from my perspective, it's two corrupt oligarchies fighting each other.
Yeah,
we shouldn't be involved.
At all, right?
I mean, I feel really bad for the Ukraine people. I think it's terrible what's happening. But I don't think we should be involved, because it doesn't, from the United States perspective, there's no threat to the United States. In fact, getting involved creates a threat to the United States.
That's what it sounds like.
And this whole thing should never have happened. It should have. The U.S. should have been very clear that we will never accept Ukraine as a member of NATO, and that
But
basically.
Why not? Why not accept every country that wants to be part of NATO into NATO? Why wouldn't they have
You're
that all-inclusive?
You're now putting an existential threat on Russia.
Boy,
And
that's what I'm saying.
that would
That's what
mean,
I've been saying.
at that point, their response is full nuclear war. And it's justified at that point, because you're saying you're no longer a sovereign nation, and we're going to destroy your sovereignty from any way we can. And so it would justify...
It's saying that to Putin. If they became part of the UN...
Well, it's not just Putin. Putin is the head of the state, but Putin is supported by a rather large government. These things don't happen in a vacuum. It's not one person. It's not you're sitting at a computer playing a video game and you go, I moved this person over here, and it does it automatically, because it's not a real person. It's just a computer thing. No, people have agreed. The Russian soldiers going out to fight, not all of them may agree, but they are all within that system, and they have not revolted in any way. So if you really didn't agree with what you're doing, revolt, get killed. I mean, it sucks, but that's what you have to do. Otherwise, you're going to continue keeping that system going. That's what we did in the U.S. We revolted against against England. We revolted against the the southern and northern countries revolted against each other and had a war and eventually hashed it out. But and the nice thing about the reason why the U.S. is not in a continuous civil war, although it's getting there again, but did the so-called civil war.
So-called civil war? The real civil war? Is it so-called civil war?
I would not call it a civil war. It was between two sovereign nations. The southern states left peacefully, and the northern states basically invaded the southern states. So it was more of an invasion from the northern states.
It was some Ukraine shit.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad example.
We annexed the southern states.
Yes, and I don't disagree with the ending of slavery through that. That's the only real good that came of that thing. But it expanded the powers of the federal government just beyond what it should ever have been and what the founders really wanted. They wanted a weakish federal government, and they wanted the states to have a strong government for themselves. So that way So we have a nation right now of 50 states plus, 7 territories. Mm-hmm. And the individual states should be, as they call them, the laboratories of democracy. California doesn't have to be the same as Texas. They can have whatever crazy rules and whatever they want. California and Texas can have whatever crazy rules and whatever it wants.
So how is that not happening now? Don't states have different laws?
The federal government has basically invaded every space that there is. And so, like when Texas passed its laws regarding the abortion, the federal government stepped in and said, hey, no, you can't do that through our judiciary and whatever else. But nowhere in the Constitution is abortion something that is in there. So that should remain at the state level. That should be hashed out between the individual states. And that's the argument against Roe v. Wade, is the fact that the federal government has no authority over it, just like marriage. Federal government has no authority over marriage. There's nowhere inside of it. Now, we do accept the fact that within, even though it is not explicitly written in there, we do interpret there are additional rights from the federal level. And so then that's where some of the argument goes on, and that's why we take them up to the Supreme Court. And then that's the question of is abortion, is marriage, well, in the case of gun rights, yes, the gun rights part is clearly defined in the Constitution, but the other two are not. And so can you find within the Constitution something that justifies these things, these additional rights?
And that's where the interpretations come from. I've interpreted it to read it this way.
And that's why you'll see the back and forth push on it, which should happen. You should have a vigorous debate upon anything that the government is involved in, because the government has only one mechanism to make laws, and that's through the use of violence.
Right, of course.
Because if you don't use, ultimately everything is violence. Taxation is violence. Because so say you decide not to pay your taxes, then they'll say, okay, well here's your bill. We'll send you out a new bill and a penalty. Well, I'm not going to pay that. And they say, well, we're going to seize your property. Well, I'm not going to let you. Well, we're going to send out armed people to take your property. Well, I'm going to kill those people. And then suddenly now you're in a civil war, and depending on how many people get involved in defending the property from being seized by the government. And so so you don't want to give the government any more power than it absolutely needs to maintain a base level of services and expected, basically, in our case, whatever, to protect our freedoms to a certain extent.
So let's go back to the annexation of the southern states. How come Texas still has the right to secede if they want?
But I mean, everybody does have the right. Every state has the right to secede.
Every state does.
From my perspective, now yes, the courts have said no, that no state has the right to secede. But if you don't enforce it, and the court has zero enforcement capability, the only thing that it can enforce it is the executive and the congressional branch. So that's one of the things about, like, the Supreme Court. They make a decision like, well, great, thanks, you make a decision. I'm ignoring you. Like, well, we can send our military to. No, we don't have one. All right, well.
Oh, wow, so that's why people so that's how they ignore those judiciary things? Oh, that's funny.
Well, and that's true in if you back up far enough, the government is just basically the largest mafia out there. The only way that they can control an area, to claim an area, is through violence. Because if you say, hey, a great example was, what was that in Portland? The Chaz Chop, whatever.
That thing. That was ridiculous.
But they left the United States for that period of time.
What, that little area?
Yeah.
But they stole that area.
Well, you can argue that part, but they left the United States, and because the United States, it doesn't matter whether you vote or whatever, the territory was no longer under control of the federal, state, or local government. It had its own government at that point. They had their own security forces. They had their own border controls, which is kind of hilarious because they were anti-border, but with their own borders. But they became their own nation temporarily.
Did they go that big?
That's basically what they really became.
So in the media, of course, my limited access, they played them like a joke, and it was just homeless people taking over a neighborhood.
But that neighborhood no longer
was in the United States.
In reality, no, because the police could not enter there. They would get attacked, and that's ultimately what a nation is only what can be enforced through violence. And
wow.
So you don't want you want as little power and as little authority to the governments you have, only to the minimum necessary to do what you're willing to give up. Because whatever you give to the government is a right you're giving up from yourself. And you're saying, like when we give policing power over to the government, we are saying we have given up the
right
authority.
To ourselves.
Well, we've given up the authority to use violence ourselves. And it's not a bad idea. Yeah, I mean, you still have, at least in the United States, there's other countries where you literally don't. But in the United States, you still have the right of self-defense. No matter what, you can always defend yourself against violence being done against you. Now, you then have to go to court and justify that, and you may lose, and you may go to jail, even though what you did was justified. Because, hey, maybe the government came down and used violence on you. You're allowed to defend yourself against it and expect the consequences for doing so. And the government doesn't like anybody who opposes it.
Right.
Because it's a big club and you're not in it. But,
right. Wow.
But yeah, that's why the libertarian point of view is the smaller and smaller government you can get to, and if possible, no government, which is anarchy. Now, anarchy is not violence. Violence is the exact opposite of anarchy. Violence is the ultimate expression of authority, where anarchy is the absence of rulers. It's not the absence of rules, though. So.
Right. But yeah, we're not gonna have anarchy. That's ridiculous.
Well, no, actually, it's a pretty good system.
How would you support a military if you have an anarchist society with no central government?
So let's say you have let's say for some crazy reason the United States all becomes just a giant anarchy. So there's no centralized government. There's there will be small governments, but it's different in the way that, because they're all voluntary. So it's like you choose your government. It's like, hey, Corporation X will become my government, and I don't like you because your policies have changed or your prices have changed. I'm going to Corporation Y. You're now my new government. I haven't moved or anything else. You just become the people who have the rules, and you negotiate for me on matters that have been agreed to be matters that you're going to deal with.
Does that ruin free travel throughout the country?
No.
Yeah. Why not? If there's these small, they might not want anybody in their communities based on their
That's fine.
Race, religion, ethnic. So you can't travel across the land.
If
it's
I
no
put
longer a free country.
If I put up a wall around my property, can you legally enter it?
No.
Then what has changed?
That's not cool, I guess.
Would a shop not want people to come in and spend their money at the shop? Would they not allow free travel to their shop? Would they not then pay the people who own the land in between because they get a profit from it?
Yeah, but as a black man in the past, this sounds fucking fishy, bro. It doesn't sound cool at all.
It
sounds like I'm about to be excluded from fucking something, Jimmy.
But you're making one of the mistakes is you're assuming that that's what's going to happen. And actually, in many cases, do you want to go to some place that is that way? Do you want to go and provide your services, your funds to a place that way?
No. So it's a
Wouldn't
better
it
way
be
to
better
avoid
if they
it.
just go out and go, these people are terrible people.
Yeah,
I don't want to
avoid them
interact
completely.
with them.
And that's the truth. Yeah, that would be better to have a clear sign.
And that's part of the advantage of like First Amendment, the freedom of speech. You should be allowed to be as hateful as possible. That way we can argue why you're wrong.
Right. But not, don't force you to hide it, and we all just act like it doesn't exist.
Oh, what's his name? The black guy who regularly convinces people to leave the KKK.
I forget his name. Yeah, that guy.
I wish I could remember it right offhand. Antifa hates him. They literally want him dead.
Really?
But, yeah. It's weird. I don't understand.
That doesn't make sense at all.
But I kind of understand, but it's just I'd rather live in a place that's peaceful where people want to interact.
Can we Google his name real quick?
He's
that he reforms Ku Klux Klan.
And he just goes to talk to him. And in many cases, as he's pointed out, it's people who've never interacted with anyone.
Black guy at all. And he's like, it's the first time they ever had a beer with a
and
black
they're
guy.
like, oh, you're just a person.
That's how powerful lies are, huh? Especially if they're indoctrinated young. You have no idea.
And that's the danger of social media right now. If you sit at home all day long and you just go like, hey, here's my limited source of rage bait places, and all I do all day is just read this, and I think the world's getting worse and worse and worse. Like, go out and touch grass, please.
Get some air, son.
Because it's always, you know what? One, there's usually some justification behind the rage of whatever it is.
What's his name? Daryl Davis.
Yes.
That's not Daryl. That's him.
Yeah, no, that's him.
Yeah, but that was him.
Yes, Daryl Davis is
Daryl Davis, yeah.
Amazing man, and very brave for what he's done.
Yep, that's crazy.
But
hey, because man, one-on-one, everybody's cool.
No, there are people that just are terrible people.
The majority of people are fucking cool, Jimmy.
Yeah, but I mean, there are legitimate terrible people. Yes. They're generally the people in government that we vote for. But
hey, remember at the beginning we said we weren't going to get political.
Oh, I know. That's why I don't like going into this direction.
Politics. All right, so let's turn off.
There's so many other more interesting things.
Yes, like aliens. You work for NASA, motherfucker. You guys are into some crazy shit.
I was even in the Air Force, and we flew around.
Yeah, man.
And my pilot always messed with us, trying to say he's seen crap and whatever.
Was he fucking with you, or was he real?
He's always fucking with us.
So Captain David Fravor, all the other stuff, are those just military vehicles that we've developed that look like alien
Good
technology?
Chance.
Really? What about that submersible that's hauling ass? You can't go that fast in water, can you?
Why not?
It's just so thick. I don't know. It just seems...
I mean, we have... So one of the things that I was taught early in the military when discussing some of the topics of, hey, because when I was looking at some of our plans for some of our missions that we have that were specific to the B-52, is like,
play that shit.
Why would we do this? So this seems like a really bad plan. So trust the plan, because looking at it is like, this we're never going to make it to target. We're not even going to get the weapons off the plane. And they go, no, trust the plan. And what he can't say, because this guy actually has worked in many of those skunk work areas, is, but what he did say is, like the high-tech stuff that's secret right now that's on our plane, high-tech, it's fairly old, but he said, our technology is at least 25 years, in many cases 50 years ahead of everyone else's. He said, trust the plan, because there's stuff you don't know about and probably in your lifetime may never know about, hopefully, and I hope not, because there's stuff I learned as I was in there of I hope never is needed, but it's just way ahead of everybody else. And so that's why it's always, we seem to always be like at or even to whoever our near peer is. Mm-hmm. In reality, we're usually fairly far ahead of them, but we don't like to expose that. And
so
we don't.
Those hypersonic nukes, are we ahead of them? Can we stop them?
Don't know. Can't say.
Don't know, can't say.
But
it sounds like we're behind.
I would not worry about it.
Okay.
First off, it's Russia.
What about North Korea and China?
Well, North Korea, I wouldn't worry. North Korea's focus is on maintaining their independent sovereignty. They just, the one lesson that Gaddafi has taught us, don't give up your nukes.
Don't give up your fucking nukes, and no one ever will after that.
And, well, going back to politics, Gaddafi was working on the gold dinar.
Yep, and he's about to get off the American dollar.
And that would have destroyed the global system.
Yep. He tried to create his own money, and they took him out. So I don't know if y'all...
Well, it's not just
Hillary
that.
Clinton took his ass out.
It's money that would be difficult to inflate your way out of debt. Because that's what the U.S. does. It just makes your money so... It's like, oh, we'll never pay off $30 trillion debt. We don't have to. You know why? We'll just reduce the value of the dollar by 99%, and then, okay, $30 trillion, that's nothing. Here, let's go to Zimbabwe and grab your $30 trillion bill, and same type of thing, except we do it over a longer time period, destroying people's individual value. And that's why you can never get ahead in the U.S. if you don't invest, if you don't own something, if you don't own an asset. Because your assets... My car shouldn't be an asset, but at the moment it is. It keeps getting more expensive. It's like, I just hope never to wreck that thing at this point.
Right.
Because, like, when I bought it, I paid, $42 for it. And now it's going for almost $60. Like, I've had it for 7-8 months, something like that.
That's crazy.
Like, this is dumb. Of course, I paid for it well before that. But
that's the battery and chip shortage, though. That's the reason.
No. It also has to do with the inflation, just general dollar inflation.
Jimmy drives a Tesla. A nice Tesla.
And it's funny, when I was computing the whether or not it was affordable or not, that was based off of the $2 gas. And now it's like, well, it's definitely affordable.
It's definitely... Oh, fuck, man. It was $105 to fill up my tank yesterday.
But... all those crazy people who say, hey, we need to, or the crazy people who have Teslas and whatever else and go, well, the gas prices don't affect you. Yes, it does. It affects your transportation cost for the food going to the stores, your transportation cost for the energy to get to the generators to power your house. Which,
right.
So, yeah, energy input costs are huge, and that is the majority of the increase in prices for everything else, on top of just general inflation from printing too much money.
All right, well, let's get off of politics. Are there aliens, Jimmy? Have we discovered some shit they haven't said?
Oh, yeah.
Does NASA know some shit? What's that door on Mars?
Door on Mars?
You see that doorway on Mars China found?
Oh, I think I saw something. I didn't care.
What do you mean, space dude? I mean, that's fucking a big deal. What do you think? I mean, what if there's...
I don't believe much that comes out of China, no matter what.
So what do you believe about just not even intelligent life throughout the galaxy? I believe it's moldy. I believe if the Big Bang spread all elements in all directions, there should be
possible
a billion Earths. I mean, anywhere there's sunlight hitting water, there should be fucking mold and fungi and grass.
Well, to start with, I'm a Christian, so I do believe that God has created life, and so if God wanted to create life somewhere else, then so be it. Anything is possible, especially for God. But as far as the unique situation where Earth isn't just unique because of its distance from the sun and the fact that it has a moon and the fact that it has water and all the other elements were necessary, including whatever chemicals ended up coming together to form DNA, all these random events that just happen to work out perfectly. It's also protected by the planets that are further out, like Jupiter and Saturn, because they absorb all the large comets and rocks and everything else. So that's why we don't have the constant bombardment of our planet, where if you look for another Earth-like planet and you're looking for a life that's similar to ours, then you're going to need a system that is very similar to ours, that it has to almost be a mirror copy of what we are.
Right.
And
But
can it
but that's
exist?
just
Sure, why
life
not?
like ours. I don't care about like us. I'm just thinking about life, period.
And we don't know what other life might be.
Right.
And we may be interacting with other life that we don't know. So,
Oh, I believe it already. I believe they're already here. Think about it. You don't look at every bug. They could have nanotechnologies just hanging out all. They know everything about us.
don't know.
Or they might not care.
But I don't think it's something that, I mean, it's fun to think about, but I don't think
Right.
it's something to really worry about.
So there's no plans like on your missions to the moon you guys are working on and to Mars. There's no like contingency as if you run into something. They don't have that built in. Like,
Well, I'm sure there's some sort of baseline. Well, I know there's a baseline if you a UFO policy of, hey, you report, do whatever. It's because the UFO may be a like
it could be
a Russian
anything.
spy ship or whatever, or
Right.
something we don't know. So you report whatever. Uh, but you guess your best and then deal with whatever actually happens.
So
And if something is capable of coming here, we're already screwed.
we're already screwed. Yeah, I already know. If you think about it, we're already done because they're doing Interstellar.
But what happens if we're the first?
We might be,
And,
or
and you don't know.
or we're like the third. There's been other generations of humans that have been more advanced than us.
Or as Musk has talked about the fact, maybe all life reaches a test point where you either completely collapse or you can escape it.
right.
And nothing has escaped it yet.
That
So-
we know of. I mean, we're in a fucking edge of a galaxy. We don't know shit. Really, if you think about it.
Well, I mean, until we leave, we don't know.
Right.
And until we finally get there and we start working, like there's a guy over at our NASA area. He's still working on that warp engine. He's got his model, his working model that he has in his office. So maybe we'll get to the point where a warp engine will allow us to travel faster than light. And even then, it's still a long ways away
To
from
the
the
next
next.
thing. I know. Even at like at half the speed of light, it's gonna take 20 years to get to the whatever the closest.
What's Alpha Centauri? I
Centauri,
think.
yeah.
But,
So here we go.
I love that video game.
Flat earthers. 'Cause,
Yeah,
we were having
I
this
love
conversation.
flat earthers.
Well, she's like, well, how do they prove it's flat? I was like, well, how do you prove to me it's not flat?
Well, that's easier to do than to
How?
prove it flat. But
How? If the moon looks flat and it never turns, but you're going to tell me it's perfectly balanced spinning at the same time that we're spinning, just so perfectly that we only see one side. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll bite. That's cool. That's great balance, right?
Mhm.
How do you prove to somebody that Earth is not flat?
there's a number of ways, like the what is it? A couple, I guess, 5,000-6,000 years ago, when they figured it out by then already that it wasn't flat, where they built those towers, the monoliths, and they built a monolith like in Egypt, and then they built one over however many miles away, far enough, and you can tell that, hey, at this time the sun angle is this, at this time the sun angle is this, so clearly the shadows are different, and the only way it could be that way is if
It's
it
just
curves.
rotating.
Yeah.
Wow, that's how they did it?
Hmm.
Well, that's fucking crazy. See, that's harder.
And that's why when we were talking at the beginning, people in the past, they lived differently. But they weren't stupid. They weren't
Right.
they weren't running around just pooping in the street and
Right,
whatever.
right.
I mean,
They
that's
were
what we do now. And if they came back to us, they're like, these people are
Nasty.
uncivilized.
Yeah. Okay, I like to throw this one at you. Because Jackie likes to question shit, and I studied school, so I'm all indoctrinated into what I was learning. She was like, we were talking about the speed of light. I was like, if we can't agree on the constant of the speed of light, all other things fall apart, right? I was like,
Yeah.
we have to agree on the constant. She's like, well, how do they know the speed of light? I was like, they figured it out. She's like, how? And we looked it up. Some dude in the 1800s. It was a stupid ass answer. I didn't like the answer at all. Like, it wasn't a very clear.
Well, they didn't have the tech to
concise.
prove it at
So
the
how
time.
do you measure the speed of light then?
We use, I think it's Einstein's relativity and various equipment and whatever.
So we don't fucking know.
We keep reproving it. No, we do lots and lots of experiments and keep reproving it over and over again.
186,000 miles a second. It's pretty constant.
And then whenever there's a experiment that shows that something's different, they go into a lot of checks and whatever, and then usually find out there was a problem with the experiment itself.
With the gauge, with the equipment, maybe,
or the design of the experiment.
Right.
So,
fucking crazy.
but that's one of the things I dislike about the modern worship of science. That science is a process. Science is not the result of it, and the result of science is simply we have assumed this thing to be true until we prove it's
Wrong.
Not.
And that's science.
And you have to have an open mind to accept that everything you know may be wrong, instead of trying to impose upon everybody, this is 100% right. And all science is settled. No, it's not. I prove myself wrong on a daily basis. Whenever I'm at work, it's like, I think this is going to work. I hit run on my computer. This doesn't work.
This doesn't work at all. So what are you working on? What do you guys, as much as you can talk about?
It's all public.
Okay.
I mean, the data itself is not public, but the system is. It's just a.
So we gotta be out of here by 5:30. Yeah, it's getting time. All right, go ahead.
Oh no, but it's just a system that so you have the controllers that work at NASA at the control center. They have to be able to I'll go back. The Lunar Gateway. So the Lunar Gateway is the next space station to orbit the moon, and they're going to use that for, you go over to the Lunar Gateway, and then there's a lunar lander vehicle attached to the gateway. You take that to go to the moon, and then you fly back up, and then you hitch a ride on whatever vehicle's attached and then go back home. And so most of the time the gateway will be unoccupied, so it needs to run autonomously. And one of the other things is it's a more complicated space station than the current ISS, so a number of pieces need to be run autonomously. And so the controllers, they can't control everything because they're obviously further away, and there's the time delay, things like that. And then there's the times when the gateway will be eclipsed by the moon, and it has to run its own thing.
Is this? How's it? Are they going to let the ISS just burn up?
I don't know how they're going to dispose of it. That's normally how we do it, or drop it in the ocean somewhere. But
fuck. What about China's new shit? Is it hot? Is it awesome? I heard they just put it together.
I don't know. I haven't paid that much attention to it.
All right, you're busy in your shit, huh?
Yeah, once I start work, I usually, everything else is like, hey, I have this big, when I'm not working, I build up this big knowledge of all the stuff that's going on all the time. And it's like, hey, I know all about the special battery for Tesla. And but then after I get to work, it's like, okay, I have less time and less time and less time and less time. And then I have no time at all. And I'm just working all the time to try to finish whatever I'm doing. And it's like, hey, so did you know, like, a meteor just crashed over on the other side of the planet? It's like, I don't know. I got to get my work done.
Man, there's so much I wanted to cover, but we're running out of time at the studio. Damn. DEF CON. I wanted to get into all that shit. The Air
we
Force
didn't even
stuff.
do the Friday Freakout.
We did the Friday Freakout. All right, we got to choose right now. Story or the Freakout? How good is the Freakout? It's gone.
So story it is?
Yeah, go ahead. No shit that I thought I was going to die. My guest today, Jimmy Brewer. We're going to El Paso, people. Keep saying we're going to take on Utah. Bless Utah. Let's keep going to Utah. We're not taking on Utah. We just want to offer another place to learn, right? Come holler at your boy. All right.
Ultimately, it's just one community.
Yeah, it is just one community.
So the easy one for me is the B-52 looks big up close.
All right. Looks big up close. All right.
Talking about B-52s from March Air Force Base. We only had 2 bases left when I was in. So, what, I would just read it?
Yep, just read it.
Okay, no shit, there I was. The start of every good story. Thought I was going to die by getting sucked into the nacelle of a jet or free-falling through the wing of a fuselage of one of the world's biggest airplanes. I guess it's big, but I saw it every day, so it didn't really feel that big. Under certain wind conditions, we were in their flight patterns, and it was fairly common to watch them fly right over the DZ. I'm very surprised that none of the old it's not parasites.
Parasites. They're probably at Skydive Paris.
I know, but I was trying to figure, why would you call yourself a parasite?
Because they're there all the time, yeah.
Weird. Have written about any close encounters they may have had with the B-52 from March Air Force Base. Anyone who's ever jumped at Paris knows the airbase is right up the road, right up the road of Peace. And air traffic was a constant part of the skydiving in this part of California. One of my most memorable jumps was on a twin beach loaded that included Bill Stage and Al Frisbee, among others. We climbed to 12,500 feet, got on jump run, built a nice 8-way star. Well, that's actually nearly impossible. When there was, I looked up in time to see a B-52 pass the formation so close that I could see the silhouettes of the pilots sitting in the cockpit of the gigantic airplane. Two of the other jumpers also saw it from the conversations we had once we reached the ground. If we had been a few hundred feet in that direction, we might have punched through that bomber. Shook me up pretty bad. I bet Jim Flying W. Wilkins could tell me some tales about the B-52 at Paris since he was a pilot and jumper there for so many years.
Could you imagine being that fucking close to a jet in free fall?
Yeah. I can imagine.
Right on, WazzyCircus Radio. Hit us up on Patreon. Keep your head on the swivel and hook that shit. Come see me in El Paso, baby. Peace out. Love y'all.